Here is a modelling question, and this time it's going to be one using a cosine function. Okay, with all these modelling questions, they generally start with lots of words, so just read the words very carefully, and you might want to just pause the video here and read it carefully, and perhaps have a go yourself before I go on with it. Okay, I am going to do this by drawing a picture. I think that's usually the most straightforward way here. I've read all the words here, and I'll go from a maximum of 90 to a minimum of 30, so my picture will be something, just a graph something like this, where the maximum is going to be 90 and the minimum is going to be 30. Okay, now that's my axes here. That's M for mushrooms and T for days. Okay, just looking what I've got here. The number of mushrooms is 90 on the 3rd of April, so that's when T is 3. I've got a maximum of 90, so there's the first point I can put on my graph. Then I've got this maximum is next found on the 15th, so then we're up to 15, and I've got a maximum there, and the minimum number on any days is 30, so I've got that. I think I've written down everything. Okay, I can write quite a few other things from here. Firstly, there's a minimum at 30, and the minimum through symmetry here comes halfway between the two maximums. So if I've got a maximum of 3 and a maximum of 15, I'll have a minimum halfway between them, which is there. Now halfway between 3 and 15 there's a gap of, oops, not of 15, there's a gap of 12, and half of that is 6, so 6 and 3 makes 9, 9 and 6 makes 15. Okay, that's the minimum. And also, because we've got a maximum and a minimum, and I know these things are symmetrical again, I'm just going to put in the middle line. And that middle line will be 60, so I'm 30 above and 30 below it. I can do a bit of a curve here. Goes down like that, and so on. Okay, now let's find out how the numbers fit in my cosine equation like I have up here. I've got a period on my graph of 12, because that is the time to go from one point to that next point when it to that point again, you know, when it repeats itself. So the period is 12. I've got an amplitude, that is the distance from the middle to the top, or halfway between the top and the bottom, of 30. And right, let's just go and do some calculations. Because the period is 12, and I also know that the period is 2 pi on n, which is 12, I can do some rearranging here to find what my n is, where n is the number next to the angle in the equation. So I'm going to get that n equals 2 pi on 12, which is pi on 6. Got that. I've got my amplitude. I can see the whole graph has been shifted from the 0 up to the 60, so I've got a translation up. I've got almost everything I need to know. Let me just write down what I've got from the equation so far. I've got m equals, now my amplitude is 30. I've got a cosine equation. I've got my n, which is pi on 6, that's the number here, that's the first part of the angle. Then I've got my t, and I don't know that. And I've got a sideways translation I haven't worked out yet, but I do know it all goes up 60, because I can see that from the graph. And there's just the last bit to go, which is to find out what the sideways translation is. If I very quickly sketch you a graph of y equals cosine of x, you have this picture. Starts there and does that, and so on. this is the point that I'm going to follow to find this sideways translation, to see how far that way or that way that point has gone. And I'm using that point, that is when x equals 0, or the y-axis, because that point is not affected by any sideways dilation because it's 0. So looking up at my graph that I've got, let's find that sideways translation. If I'm thinking about it, started there and it's ended up there, that's gone plus 3. So it's gone 3 to the right, so in that case my C will be negative 3. So therefore I have my equation is 30 cos 6t minus 3 plus 60. So C equals minus 3 because I've gone 3 right. That's my translation. And that seems to be a solution. I've got my A, B, C and D. You could write this plenty of other ways. I'll just do one variation on that. You could have 30 cos pi on 6 t plus 9 plus 60, and that would be a translation of 9 to the left, and then 9 left and 3 right have a gap between them of 12, which is the period. So that would give you the same picture. The question actually asked me to find values for A, B, C and D, so just to make sure you're answering the questions correctly, you just want to list those. So A equals, even though you've written them as an equation, just be cautious answering questions. B equals pi by 6. C equals, I'll put my negative 3 solution, and D equals 60. And I'll just do one other extra thing here, though it's not really part of this question. When I looked for the sideways translation, so I'll just highlight this bit, that's this bit here. When you have a cosine, that's the point there that you consider going right or left. If I had had a sine function, its starting curve is this. And this point at the origin at 0, 0 is the one that you consider for the sideways translation, because again that is the point that's not affected by any dilations in the x direction, so must only be moved by the translation sideways. But there we go, that's that. Okay, I will finish up.